Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions. And hopefully, well, guys, I just kind of jumped the gun. I started a stream and Tobin didn't really say, yeah, I'm ready. So he's not here yet. So Big Zebra to the rescue. Big Zebra to the rescue is here to pull my butt out of the fire. Thank you very much, Big Zebra. So, let's see, for anyone who might watch this who doesn't know anything about you at all, is there anything you'd like to say about yourself before we get started, other than you have an awesome icon?
Thank you. Yes, a friend made it for me. I typically tell people I'm a Canadian mountain zebra.
Right.
And, I used to use my own name as the same way you do on your and I thought, why not promote my website instead? And
all right.
New content should be coming soon. I just completed, oh God, writing so many articles I wanted to vomit. And
what are you writing articles about? I don't think I've ever actually been to your website.
Oh, so my promotional idea is not working. Okay, well, my website is essentially a spoof news site. And
okay.
If you have ever been to The Onion, that
okay.
website, this is like sort of like an one-man band version of The Onion, where I have some help with web issues and web design, because I have no interest in learning how to do that. It just has no appeal to me whatsoever. And so I need someone to help me.
Right. Well, I'm not your guy. I am so computer illiterate, it's not even funny. I'm still using like the non 3D version of Paint to create my thumbnails.
Oh, well, why not? Once you find something that works and you're happy with it, who needs the $10,000 graphic design kit?
I know that I don't, or at least I think that I don't. I want the channel to be more about the message. Now, tell me something about what you're writing in faux news. Is it comedic? Is it making deeper observations about the actual news? Like, what are you doing there?
Well, it almost never makes any deep commentary. It's all just ridiculous, left-footed nonsense.
So it's more like it's more like a script for Monty Python then.
Sure, except it is written up in the form of short newspaper or web articles. One of the problems I've had is that I really sort of enjoy a sort of long form, but the web is turning towards people reading on their phone. And I think that it would be more digestible if a story was only 2 paragraphs. If you like, I can, what was it now? Maybe I can find it quickly. But
let's do that. Let's bring it up on the main screen.
There was, well, it, yes. Well, let's see. I hope the website is still up.
And you can just open a tab and then hit share, and then Chrome tab or Google tab or whatever you use, and that'll bring it up like there's a separate person on the stream, and then I'll bring it up for you to the main screen.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll get the right link. Okay, there's no, pardon me while I sort this out. I haven't even looked at this website for a little while. Click on this. Yes, okay. Click on that.
Peace and respect, St. Tommy, and remember Sammy Jenkins. Remember, Sammy, we gotta do another show sometime when you have you're ever gonna have 5 minutes to rub together.
Here we go. Well, actually, I'm putting the link into the private chat window. Is that
okay?
The right way to do this?
That's one way to do it. Sure.
Okay.
So I'll open that. I'll open that in a new tab. And then when that opens up, okay, that's a hilarious title already. Then I'll go to share there in the bottom of the StreamYard, and it's going to say share screen. I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to go to application window, and that's going to be one of the options. Oh, Chrome tab is one of the options. And there's your site right there, Big Zebra. And I'll click on that and say share. And that's got it up there, right there.
Yes. So you get the idea. There's an article beneath that headline, and people can read all about China's plans to miniaturize the population. And so I do a lot of things like that. I wrote one a long time ago about how the America's the American Navy would auction off naming rights to aircraft carriers and battleships to raise
Okay.
money. And so I talked about things about how there were going to be operations off the coast of Libya, uh, including the USS Febreze. And so they were all
The USS what?
Febreze. You know
Febreze?
that, yeah. And there was a really weird one where I talked about a battleship that was about to be launched, and it was the USS Kotex with wings.
Kotex with wings, right.
Yeah, and the Navy captain or whoever's in command of the ship explained that it was symbolic and perfectly appropriate.
For an
And
aircraft carrier.
yes, and it was an escorting vessel allowing young women and men to take charge of their own lives, especially on those days with heavy flow. And it's like, and like I tend not to use obscene words and that sort of
Well,
thing.
you don't need to.
No, and also when you do use them, it makes them stronger. So the power is in not using them. I've often
Right.
said that one of the great things about swear words and curse words is that the fact that you don't use them shows respect for the person you love or
Right.
just other people, you know, and you show respect by not using them
Right.
and that sort of thing.
I
So,
had a real problem when I became a theist because I wanted to use the same expressions I'd been using since back in the days when I was a young man in the army, and all of them are colorful expletives with intended meaning that is not indicative of the words themselves. But I broke the habit by simply taking the time to not use expressions.
oh, okay.
I
So
just don't
no
use
more
any
metaphors.
expressions and no more. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, people like listening to you, and so certainly this zebra does. So, by all means, keep it up. Um,
Thank you.
uh, do you have some religious thing on your mind that you wanted to discuss?
Oh, I always have some religious thing on my mind. Like religion is horrible. It is based in fear and loathing of others, and personal and tribal pride, and superstitions that can't be true in reality. That's my first take on religion. Um, but as for what religious stories are trying to say, um, I guess it's the only reason I have any subscribers at all is that I'm not, or at least no, that's not true. If I was standard religion, I'd probably have more subscribers actually, but
Oh, yeah.
I'm not looking for popularity. I'm exploring with others what I think the truth is and what they think the truth is, and so we can bounce ideas off of each other and maybe figure something out. At least that's what I want to do.
Well,
So
come to
yeah, go
think
ahead.
of it, I heard of something really interesting that I
What's
thought
that?
might appeal to you.
Hmm.
It was apparently someone was able to draw parallels between Noah exposed. Noah became enraged that while he was drunk, one of his sons saw him naked,
Okay,
and
if they say so.
it's yeah, it's part of the Pentateuch, and it leads to all sorts of crises and whatnot. And someone was able to make a parable because one of the sons was disowned. I think it was.
No.
So there was a parallel drawn
Uh-huh.
between that story in the Old Testament and the
Uh-huh.
story of Kronos being castrated
Hmm.
by one of his sons.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out that some of the names of the sons of Noah are similar to the names of the sons of Kronos. And
Yeah.
yes, and it was interesting. But of course, the meaning of both stories, of course, isn't the same. And but the idea that someone is taking learning from one myth and then trying to reinvigorate it by retelling it in a different way is really interesting.
Well, I find that whole thought process that you just expressed, and especially in the last sentence there, last couple sentences, very interesting idea. I've heard people like Matt Dillahunty and Aaron Raw and others arguing against Christianity and saying, things like, well, you've already rejected 99.99% of gods. I'm just asking you to reject 0.01% more.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Uh, and Christians in their pride and tribalism will agree to that idea. But say for instance, I was an archaeologist,
Hmm.
specifically the brand that digs up dinosaur bones or fossils.
Yes, a
And I don't know what that word is. What's that?
paleontologist. A paleontologist.
Paleontologist. Say I was okay. So say I was a paleontologist, and I tracked down Tiktaalik,
Yes.
and I found Tiktaalik 9.5 feet down in a swamp where the average temperature range uh, 30 million years ago or whatever it's supposed to be um, was between 68 and 95 degrees.
Sure.
Okay. And everywhere I went all over the planet, where those conditions would have been the same. And at that time, I dig down and I find Tiktaalik. Well,
Okay.
that is not how you disprove the existence of something. That's not how you disprove the validity of something. That's how you prove it. The more confirmation you find, the stronger your case. But it's Christian pride that makes them go, oh, no, 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 that's not the same story. We didn't borrow that from some other religion. That religion's false. That God doesn't exist.
That's
You see my
interesting. That never occurred to me. But that is so it's more valid. Like the
sure,
story of Noah's flood, because there was a flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
and many others, yes.
Yeah, so the story has more validity, not less, because it was passed around. And
Right. And
because
the only reason that a person can use that as an attack onto some form of theism is when they have pride that they have to be the only one that's right. Like Matt Dillahunty makes the statement, well, they could all be wrong, but they can't all be right. And the Christian goes, yeah, you're right. Damn it. They can't all be right. Wrong. Wrong. They could all be right where they're assigning the same values and idea systems in the same stories expressed to different people, of different cultural norms and different idea sets. But if you think about it, and here's a story I like to tell. Um, it, I'm an American in New Mexico, and if someone super glued my feet to the street,
Mhm.
my feet, not my shoes, and a city bus was coming, and the city bus had no chance of stopping and no chance of seeing me, and it was going to kill me. It was going to kill me, no doubt. And a stampede of cattle came through, and one of the cows, took the calluses off the bottom of my feet, but I was no longer stuck, and the cow get hit by the bus, and the cow dies. As an American, I'm going to go, gee, I wonder, was there thunder or a gunfire, or was there some wild dogs? What started that stampede? Now take that exact scenario and ask yourself, what would go through the mind of a Hindi man in exactly the same situation?
That the beast that is infused with godliness.
Right. And it was probably a great uncle or someone who loved him.
And then, of course, the great bull of heaven, which seems to pop up in so many.
Sure. So my point is, because the different ways that societies look at things, in order to tell the same story, you have to tell it different ways to keep it the same story.
Mm.
So I don't have any problem with the Red Star Kachina being chapter 4 of the Book of Revelation, which is an Australian Dreamtime, the giant rainbow serpent, which in Japanese classical art is a great grimacing god behind the alabaster flute woman with a headdress, and his headdress matches the red dragon of China, matches chapter 4 of Revelation, matches the Red Star. I got no problem with that.
But would they mean the same thing, the stories that involve them?
Well, describe to me what the red dragon in Chinese religion is.
I have no idea.
Okay, well, it lives in the sky. It lives forever. It's highly intelligent and very powerful. And although it's not the first dragon that shows up, it's the most important dragon.
Mm-hmm. And in Revelations?
In the book of Revelation, although heaven's arrival is not the first sign of heaven, it's actually the last sign of heaven. It's the most important sign of the 7 signs of end times, and gives coloration and count and decoration and wings and all the same stuff that the red dragon has. Living forever, highly intelligent, descends from the sky.
Well, that's a book you might like would be Richard Graves' The Greek Myths.
Really? Why?
Well, what it is that he often, when he tells, say, the myth of so and so and so and so, it turns out there are all these variations, and he goes through each of the variations, and then he explains why this variation exists and why that one. So when you have a thing where, for example, maybe the Greeks fight the Amazons or the centaurs, and it turns out the centaurs were said to be from some area in the ancient Near East. And the centaurs actually represent this other culture that was defeated or pushed back. And if that changes in another myth, it's another variation of the myth. It is in order to relate that battle or struggle between a different region. And
so just another telling of the same story.
Yes, and the idea is to
I'm with that.
Make holy your own history, because it's now, in a sense, mythologized. At least that's how I read it.
Well, that's not unfair, and it's not without value. I mean, if we looked at these stories as strictly mythos, then they're very, very limited in value. They're really nothing more than Grimm's fairy tales at that point, However, if there's a new religion and a new group of people who think that it is valuable, then it's more likely to be preserved. So in order to preserve the story, and I've never thought about this till just now, you would have to reintroduce the story.
Yes. And the natural way we change stories, we keep telling them and retelling them, and they change on their own. What if a change sticks? Because it's more deeply psychological.
Your microphone got a little quiet there. I don't know what happened. I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that sounds good right there.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say that as stories change over time, they can somehow click into our subconscious or our deep psychology, and
Hmm.
thus the new variation, it has more appeal because it does a better job of sticking with us. The same way, for example, Jews didn't really have much of a notion of heaven and hell
Right.
until they became in contact with Zoroastrianism,
That is a
which is
tough one to
a
say. Yeah.
mouthful. Yes, especially for me. And a lot of zebras have trouble with the letter Z, which is
Yeah.
weird.
Well.
What can you do? So, but something I wanted to mention is that if you open up Richard Graves' book on the Greek myths, it's a two-volume set, and you start reading the first one, and he starts talking about how most of the creation myths will include an egg and a snake.
Yes.
And of course, our Bible doesn't have an egg in it, at least I don't think it does. But it also has some sort of movement over water. And of course, what is it? The breath of God moved over the face of the waters.
Well, it sort of says that, but it sort of says that, like, it sort of says that when Noah is drunk, he punishes his son.
Yeah.
It sort of says that. Going back several minutes, to say that Noah's son, for seeing him naked, is punished is a very Christian view of the text, where what the text says is Noah makes him a servant for seeing
Is
him
that what it
naked.
is? I'm sorry, I
It
don't
makes him a
remember.
servant of his brothers. It's not really a
Oh,
punishment. And he won't get an inheritance from his father. But that's a description of the Levites, that they are
mm,
to be priests and their inheritance is the priesthood, and they get no lands. Okay. They're not landed, they're priests. But that's a position of servitude because of knowledge. And to see someone naked is to fully understand them. It's
yes.
not because it doesn't mean that the guy like was drunk and stripped off his clothes. It means that in a state of bliss, his son saw him naked, like saw who he really is.
Mm,
But then this could be another story of the enlightenment of the Christ figure, because that's what
well,
happens to Jesus. He sees his father naked. He becomes a servant because of that. He is not landed, but instead becomes the ultimate servant of all the people, etc., etc.
that's really interesting. I find the connection between Noah and Jesus a bit tenuous, but I haven't studied it for that, and I don't know
Well,
if I have the skill to do so.
consider this for a moment. The beginning of that part of the story of Noah is Noah became a vineyardman, a vineyard keeper.
Oh, no
Now, if
wonder
you
he
look at
got drunk.
what's that? No wonder he got
No,
drunk. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Throughout the Bible, becoming a vineyard keeper makes you become drunk. That's a truism. But the word vineyard keeper, in keeping with all of the text, means to start a garden that is a creation of people. I am the vine, you are the branches, you are the grapes, good grapes, bad grapes, on and on and on. And the father is the vineyard keeper. So in that part of the story, Noah is the father,
Mm.
which is why his son sees him naked.
That is really interesting. I wonder what um, some religious scholar would think of us right now, and if
I'll
we
tell you
had
what they'd say right now. That
what
is
would
not a
they
proper reading of the text. You can't do that in my church. Uh, or if they're secular, that's not a proper reading of the text. It doesn't keep with tradition. Nobody agrees with you. You're way outnumbered, but the definitions will allow it.
Mm. Well, the if it had happened in the year 1200, we'd both be burned at the stake.
Oh yeah, but I'm an American on the internet.
Yes.
And, so they're not going to do
And then
crap
the
to me.
zebra, they couldn't tell me apart from the other zebras. So there'd be
Right.
no hope.
That is greatly to your advantage. You look like
Yeah.
any zebra in the history of the planet. Very
Yes, although
convenient.
given my position in the herd, I can read those barcodes like nobody's business.
Well, zebras need cashiers too, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
But I find this really interesting. Are there any other things like that that come to mind?
The whole Bible's like that. It's like trying to talk to 6-year-olds about what Moby Dick means.
Yes.
Well, you could say, well, no, it's about an albino whale and a fisherman. That's what it's about. Well, yeah, you can say that, but that's a really shallow reading. When a lot of people agree that there's a deeper meaning there about obsession ruining your life.
Yes.
And how you can lose everything.
And how it's also a form of idolatry.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Worshipping this one element of his life.
Remember Sammy Jenkins remembers a conversation that I had very long time ago that he thought was apparently very, very amusing. And Big Zebra, you're welcome to answer that or not. I've never been around a herd of zebra, especially lonely single males by themselves, so I don't have an answer.
Do zebras masturbate? Yes. I'm trying to remember the name for it. We don't speak of it often. Belly bashing.
Belly bashing, right?
That's what zebras do.
Mm-hmm.
And we also perform the Heimlich. And,
of course.
Yes. The with 70s porn stars. Well, Math Pig, you're really on point there. I was thinking of doing a Twitch stream where I would play 70s porn in the background, but just the soundtrack, not the visuals, and see if they slap me with a copyright strike or not. But of course, I have other things to do. And
some things take up your time more important than that. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I haven't been watching the chat because I wanted to concentrate on Richard. So if anyone asks why I takes an interest in why I'm not responding, that's why I'm just concentrating on Richard.
And there have been a few people that asked if you can boost your microphone, Annie. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and crank it up all the way if you have that ability. Because I can control it from this end easier if you max out your volume. Okay, so are there other things within the Bible that I would say are being misread, like what vineyard keeper means, meaning the Father, and the vineyard is the earth, and the vine is Christ, and the grapes and leaves and things like that are the people. And that's consistent throughout the work. So when I read of Noah becoming a drunkard, because he made a vineyard, he became a vineyard keeper. That's like saying the Father is intoxicated by us. And then you have the hero of the story, the son who becomes the servant. Yeah, that's the story of Christ. He sees the Father naked, and that is why he has to be the servant, is because he sees the Father in the truest sense, in the deepest way. I'm on the outside and I'm looking in, something like that. So of course he becomes the servant. Is that a cursing? No. You could say it's a cursing in the way that curse means promise, but you can't say it's necessarily a negative thing. It's not. And it just keeps going on like that throughout the text in the Christian reading frame versus a continuous reading frame, which is why I'm very against the Christian reading frame, is because they keep doing things like that. Something that pops into mind easily is if there's a definition within the Bible for a word, you should probably try to use it, because it only defines very, very few words. And mostly you'd have to go and find the definitions yourself for context. But it troubles itself to define what a stone is. Okay? And what a stone is, apparently, is something that you build an altar with, right? And
Yes.
and the word stone there used when it says stone someone, when it says build an altar, that kind of stone,
Yes.
it's described as being unchangeable. You can lift no tool upon it, and it must have the word of God written in it. Can
Right.
you tell me what stone has the word of God lifted, has the word of God written in it, and is not to have a tool lifted upon it, not to be changed?
That is very weird. You could, of course, when you say written within it, does that
Yeah,
mean
it has to be
upon
in
it
it.
or
No,
inside of the stone?
it literally says in.
See, that's very weird. I know that it's believed that when the Israelites were nomadic,
Hmm.
they did build temporary altars,
Hmm.
and but as to what the stones were made of or what they did with them or didn't do is another thing, and it makes me also wonder if we have our translations wrong.
No, no, the
Maybe.
words are right. The context is the problem. That's my whole point. The problem's context. Like you literally cannot take a rock, which you must not change, and have the word of God written in it,
Hmm.
unless it's the Bible talking about the Bible, Old and New Testament. Now you have
So,
a stone that should never be changed that has the word of God written in it.
well, the Jews were excellent at not changing the Word of God. They
Hmm.
had elaborate procedures to make sure that as they created new copies of what we call the Old Testament, that they didn't make
Sure.
changes. So that's
Well,
really
there's
interesting.
still scribal errors, but
Sure.
this idea is repeated so often there's no mistaking what it means.
Mm. That is really interesting, but it makes you, of course, wonder what is a stone.
It means the
And
Bible.
yeah, but so the Bible would be on the altar, or the
No, the
altar
Bible
itself.
is the altar.
Okay,
Not the Bible goes on an altar. It tells you when you make an altar, you must make it out of the Bible,
right.
which
That
makes
is
sense later on when he says, I didn't ask for all these animal sacrifices, these celebrations of new moons, and the rest of that crap you're doing. I never asked for that
okay. That's funny.
because it wasn't talking about killing animals. That's not the point. Now,
I'm
did Jews
assuming
kill animals and even each other and outsiders? Sure, they did. But it's not what
yes.
the text is talking about.
By the way, my mic is at 100% now. So if you wanted to fiddle
People
with
are
it,
claiming it's better.
okay. Well, let me know if that changes. Um,
Okay.
that is really really interesting. But what do you
So,
make of all the begats? The whole section, is it in Numbers where
well, there's
whole
lots of begats.
yes, where and so Josaphat begat Lehman, who begat so and so. Um, I can't remember it, but
I don't know if you have time and patience for it. I would read you a set of begats.
sure, far away.
Okay. So,
Your audience may hate us.
um, I'm betting they don't. I'm betting they won't hate it. Actually, they might get a little bored if they've heard this before, but they're not going to get bored if they've never heard it. So I'm gonna read you one of the longer ones. This is First Chronicles 6 and 53 verses of it.
Okay, far away.
One of the longer begats. I'm going to read it to you. This is in English, not Hebrew, because I don't
Yep,
speak Hebrew. I
me
speak
neither.
English. So this is going to be in English. United by a refugee, an ally to the bitter, an ally to the high people, the anointing seat of association and strength of God from high people, the wish of God drawing out rebelliously, the wish of God and volunteer worshiper of God. God is a helper from the high desirable place. God is a helper against the mouth of the serpent. Father of plenty will depopulate forcefully. Jah has risen. That's short for Jehovah. It's a nickname. Jah has risen rebellious. Jah has said his brother of goodness is just and a brother of anger. Jah has helped. Jehovah has favored. Jah has helped. Jah has said the brother of goodness is just in his retribution and a portion of Jah. I just read you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 names in the order they're given.
Okay.
And it keeps going like that. And in fact, it tells the story of end times. It tells the book of Revelation.
In Numbers, or well, you said Chronicles.
That was 1 Chronicles 6, 1 through 53, or the beginning of 1 through 53. The first 30 names.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what to make of that. And also,
well, it was obviously parts of sentences put together. Like one of the names is, I'll give you an example of, I'll read you only one name at a time. United Refugee. That's the first name in the list, United Refugee.
Which could be all the Hebrews.
Well, sure.
Refugees out of Egypt, I mean.
One of the names in this list is son of him.
Oh, Noah's son.
Well, no. I mean, you can assume it means Noah's son. You can assume that. But what you need to know is what's the next name in the list. And the next name in the list is heard of God, which makes a sentence, son of him heard of God.
That is, the Bible is really interesting and very bizarre. And anyway, you feel this is a clear foreshadowing of the book of Revelations?
Yeah, it definitely is. It goes into the story of how the white tree will be killed by the serpent, but overcomes the serpent in the end. Yeah, the whole story.
That is really interesting. That, if I were reading the Bible, it would not have occurred to me. And also, I know you've said you've only read the Bible once.
So far.
So
I'm thinking about reading it again to do a Bible study through the whole thing.
Yes, those will make it for interesting videos.
Maybe. It's hard to say.
You never know how people will respond.
Well, I know how Christians will respond. They'll realize that it's destroying their religion and their superstitions, and they'll get pissed.
The thing is that as interesting as I find the Bible, I don't believe that it's inspired by a deity. I think it's a human product. And
okay.
But you feel there's some element of the divine at work here.
Okay. First, according to the story, the upper room or the new heaven or the new Jerusalem or the lowest level of heaven, those terms would all be interchangeable, meaning the same location. Okay. And when the apostles ask of Christ, how will we get to the upper room? Well, that's a really interesting question, considering what upper room means. It means the lowest level of heaven. Okay. So he responds with, you'll go through the gate to the city, follow the man carrying a pitcher of water. He will take you to the upper room. Oh, well, those are some really weird words.
That sounds like the Gnostic, I want to say liturgy, but it's not that. But some of the Gnostic Gospels have instructions like that on how to enter heaven once you enter the afterlife.
That might be a different topic, but the first time, and actually the only time I've read that, what I immediately read was, you go through the limits of a constellation, enter into the constellation, and you will go to the upper room during Aquarius.
Ah, okay. So heaven might be located in the constellation of Aquarius.
No, that heaven arrives during the age of Aquarius, the age of enlightenment, the age where Mercury is in retrograde and causes Jupiter to become enlightenment. The age where Angus, the Cyclops, is killed and becomes the brightness of Zeus's lightning rods, and just on and on and on like that.
Oh my God. So how, if you were to bother to argue with someone, how would you respond to someone who would say, well, that's a radical interpretation of the text?
I agree. I'd go so far as to say I don't think I could have thought of it. And besides that, I didn't care.
Right.
I mean, as an anti-theist, the last thing I wanted to do was find a consistent reading frame between religions.
Sure.
Like, why the hell would you do that? How about this? Just throw away your entire life, have to leave a pretty girlfriend, have to leave house and car and everything else behind and walk away. How about that? That don't sound like fun. In fact, it wasn't.
That's a tall order.
Right. So I did not want to throw my life away. I was relatively happy with my very, very small home improvement business that was very gradually growing. I was happy with that. I was happy with a pretty woman in my life, and they weren't my kids, and I wasn't really responsible for them, and somebody else was paying for them. I was happy with my Yamaha Silverado Roadstar 1700. I was happy with that. I was happy with my single turbo F250 444 cubic inch, 8.5 foot bed, true crew cab Ford truck. I was happy with that.
Okay. But you switched directions.
Well, I had to give all that stuff up and leave it behind. I could not maintain my life as I had been living it in my new morality. I could not keep it. Now, I'm not saying other people should do the same or adopt my morality. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I couldn't keep my life.
It sounds a bit like what Christ said to the apostles when he told them to follow them.
Yeah, drop your crap. Don't worry about that stuff. And let's go this way.
Amazing. And I remember seeing incredible drawings behind you of Leviathan and what was the other one?
Well, the one you saw was likely this one right here.
Yeah, there we go.
Which I didn't draw these. A friend of mine, I persuaded, I'll put it that way, to draw these for me because I think he's a fantastic artist.
He is.
I like his style a lot. It's a real modern, almost a steampunk kind of look to it. And I really like it.
It's amazing.
So he was under tight restrictions that I gave him. And the only thing that I think he did poorly here at all was that the car under the front left foot of Behemoth represents an unrealistic scale, and that Behemoth would be another probably third bigger than that. But other than that, I thought they were really good.
Oh, it's amazing.
I mean, when I read the text, what I see here in Job, in the stories and descriptions of Leviathan and Behemoth, is I see two kinds of dinosaurs that we have no skeletal remains for. That's what I see being described. Just monstrous animals. And that since Leviathan is the avenger of wrongful death and why they need walled cities for end times, apparently it's not real smart. And like a cow, if it sees a wall that's solid, it thinks it's so solid that it can't push through the wall.
Oh, okay.
That's how cows are. That's a standard if you raise cattle. You get a cow that's big enough that it starts walking through walls in your barn and such, and we had one. You just have to fill all the holes with mud, And as soon as no daylight comes through, it thinks that wall is eternally thick and it doesn't even try, even though it just walked through that wall yesterday and you fixed it. So it's the avenger of wrongful death, and why the avenger has no challengers and no way to challenge it from the people. Mm-hmm. Although Christians will say, well, the avenger of wrongful death is a person. He's just a really bad warrior. There's never any opposition to the avenger of death, and the only thing that a person can do is run to one of these walled cities like Ai, or, well, there's several listed in the Old Testament, these walled cities.
Sure.
So that they can plead their case to the people inside and seek what was it that the Hunchback of Notre Dame said as he rung the bell? Asylum, or whatever. Seek safety within the wall, sanctuary. Seek sanctuary within the walled cities. And the text describes that there'll be walled cities every so many cities, which makes perfect sense to me. If you understood that you kill somebody by accident and this thing automatically thinks you're lunch.
Sounds like a polar bear. They humans and automatically think lunch.
Yeah.
As opposed to other bears that don't do that.
And then there's behemoth, and behemoth is called, we use the word behemoth based on the idea of behemoth. Yeah, exactly. So behemoth wears the breastplate of the invisible. Now this one had me for like a couple hours. The wears the breastplate of the invisible wilderness.
I'm not sure what that would mean.
Right. I sat there and I logicked it and I could not come to an answer. Right. So I prayed about it, and it became a very obvious but viable answer to say insanity. Like, if you saw this thing, your brain can't stay.
Well, based on the drawings behind you, I could see my brain taking flight.
I mean, could you imagine seeing this thing? And you're roughly the size of one of its toenails.
Yeah, I would only see it for a short time because I'd either be running away or dead.
Right. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll faint. But Behemoth's job is to stay in the shade and relax and eat dead bodies, and that keeps diseases down. So he's God's vacuum cleaner, essentially.
Which reminds me, speaking of disease, I can't remember which book of the Pentateuch it was in, but there are incredible instructions on how to kindly aid your fellow humans when they're sick and when they have the plague, and you leave food outside their door for 3 days in a row, but don't enter and then
you'll forgive me. I was reading side chat because Brain Bug said something which works really well for a Christian reading frame, but doesn't work very well for the text, and it distracted. Can you start that thought again, please?
Sure. I can't remember what book of the Pentateuch it is, but there are elaborate instructions on how to deal with the diseased safely. So you leave food outside the tent. You don't enter the tent. But on the seventh day, maybe you do. I can't remember details now.
I know the instructions you're talking about.
Excuse me.
Please go. But a person would have to know what the words tent. I know this sounds like I'm being super picky and pedantic. You'd have to understand what the words disease means. Is it literal or figurative? What the word tent means in that context. Because the physical healings that are described actually don't happen on the planet. They're performed in heaven, where they have, and that's what tent would mean there. It doesn't mean like a piece of billowing canvas with some support poles. It's not what it means. But the place they stay that night, and all the healings happen there. consider this. Here's something funny for you against the Christian doctrinal reading of the Bible. Jesus goes around healing people, sometimes returns to the same town. Nobody stops and says, oh, hey, you healed me. Thanks. I appreciate that. Why didn't anybody ever go, dude, you're the coolest? Like, that was awesome. Thanks. Look how strong I still am. You rock. No, nobody comes back because they're not in the town anymore, which is how he healed them. What's that?
Because they're dead?
No, because they went to heaven.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Really.
Well, there's also, that's another Christian problem. Christians want to say you have to die to go to heaven. What the Bible says is you could die and go to heaven anyway. But if you're alive for the arrival of heaven, you ascend flesh and all. You don't die at all.
3 people at least who ascended into heaven. There was Elijah, Christ, of course. And for Catholics, they believe, although there's no evidence for it, they believe that Mary ascended to heaven before she died. But
they say stuff like that. But you can certainly textually show Enoch, Elijah, and Elisha.
Enoch, Elijah, and what are the last 2 there?
Elijah and Elisha.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I was confusing the 2. So that's
the people, they sound similar, yeah.
But the Book of Enoch, is that in the? Isn't that a book that's not part of our canon anymore?
Well, as you said, it depends on which canon you read, what you consider to be canon. But it's definitely, the Book of Enoch is definitely referred to in chapter 6 of the Book of Genesis in every Bible. And Enoch is named by name.
Yeah. And the Book of Enoch is enormous, isn't it? It's like God knows how many pages.
God knows how many pages?
Yeah, the Book of Enoch. It's not included, of course, in modern Bibles, but it used to be. Early Christians were big fans of it, apparently.
Yeah.
And apparently it's also an enormous book.
It was, let's see, the 2002 Oxford University Press transliteration of the books of Enoch turned out to be 180 pages on a computer screen at medium-sized print.
That's pretty impressive. A shame they left it out. There must have been something in the Book of Enoch that Christians apparently didn't take a liking to later on.
Well, I think one of the reasons for the councils at Nicaea, etc., or at least one of the ideas toward the ends of those councils, was to put the Bible understandable in the commoner's hand. But you can't have a book 2 foot by 2.5 feet by 4 inches thick with 1 inch tall letters that weighs 40 pounds, and people can carry that around and store it safely and take care of it. It's just too darn big. It's fine for a church.
So it was cut out for size reasons?
Well, all it is chapter 6 of Genesis plus the book of Revelation.
I did not know that.
So it's already there. It didn't even get taken out, actually. Now, is there different symbology used for the book of Revelation rather than the book of Enoch? Yeah, there's different symbols, but it's still the same story.
And Metatron appears too, as I recall. But I was only reading about it, not reading the actual book, you see.
Well, that's one way to translate the description. Yeah, sure. Metatron works.
I wonder what you think of. I can't remember what book it is now that is in the Catholic Bible, but not in the Protestant.
Which ones?
Or which book?
There's several.
Yeah. But the modern Catholic Bible, what is it now? It has 66 books, or is it 60?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, it has many more than 66. I think like 80 something.
Right, as opposed to the Protestant Bible, which has... sorry, I shouldn't be asking you questions about numbers. That's inconsiderate of me.
No, it's okay. I know a couple things. Some things I've bothered to repeat enough that my brain will retain them. Yeah, the King James Version and all the iterations based on the King James and based in what the King James is based in have 66 books.
Wow. Okay.
Which tells me that the beast of Satan is raised Catholic, as well as one of 6 children, being that the measure of a man is knowledge and family. And that's not surprised that the beast of Satan would be raised up in the Catholic Church. That's not exactly very shocking, actually, according to a lot of Christians. But the Catholic canon includes things that argue with other books in the Bible and are very much off topic. Like say, for instance, the wars in the Old Testament is talking about testimony and using the Bible to convince people that they should repent, that is, stoning them to death or using the sword of truth and slaying them with the sword. And that's consistently what the stories are about. And there's no problem reading them that way. And there's no parts. It certainly explains why the words are in funny order in the sentences, because it works in the reading frame of saying it hyperbolically, but it doesn't work really very well in the reading frame of saying it literally. But then you've got like 1st and 2nd Maccabees, which is just about people killing folks. And it's not about testimony at all. And it's not about causing the people to repent and bringing them into the tribe of Israel, but it's about like chopping off heads. And the Catholics keep it, and it's not a book that matches anything else in the Bible, so I don't know why.
Well, maybe it has there's a lot of history in the Bible, you might say. People claim there is. The Bible mentions Jericho. There's a city named Jericho in reality.
Sure.
And
no, there's definitely a real city.
Also, something I find interesting is that people talk about candidate messiahs, where
okay.
They may possibly have become the king of Israel, a great military leader, and these people are out there. And I think the Maccabees were considered, although they were eventually defeated, as I recall. I think some people may have thought that they might have been potential messiahs. I shouldn't have used plural there. But.
Well, it's an interesting thought, but I think where the Calvinist gets the idea of predestination from the story is when they read it as if they're in the intended reader. Just like the Mormon says, I become God over an earth of my own. Well, that's actually within the promises of the Bible. It is. That's not a stretch. Oh, absolutely is.
Oh my God.
Also, other promises that are in the Bible are you will be given the new name of God. How do you like that as a promise?
That's really impressive. Also, being given information like that, the name of something,
right.
Historically, for among humans that have shamans or witch doctors, often while you'd have a name that you'd share with your family and friends, you had a secret name given to you by the local priest.
Right.
And that way, spells could not be cast upon you because you could not be named.
Right. That's the end of I think the 4th letter in the churches to Asia. I will give you a new name that no man will know except him that receiveth it.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's right on the money. I didn't know that was in there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, there's so much more reading to do, and I feel like after talking to you that I've never read the Bible, and I have no idea what.
I really hadn't.
Yeah, are you going to write down your take on things and maybe publish it?
I'm not trying to. I don't think there's going to be time for that, to be honest.
Well, it would be an enormous job.
Yeah, I think that to do a good job of that would probably take a good 10 or 20 years,
Mm,
and to do it well. Although I did once, I guess I could do it again because a friend of mine has it. I'm not sure it's going to be returned to me. I could do just the book of Revelation. I could do that in perhaps a couple months. Maybe I could accomplish that. Compiling it in chronological order, like the American mind likes a story to be,
yes.
and putting all the related topics together and in order that makes sense chronologically, instead of from three different points of view, which we find very, very confusing. Which I'm not sure that the ancient Near East would have found that confusing, but we apparently don't like it. I've even heard people say there's 21 plagues instead of 7 because it's written from three different points of view.
Mm.
But I've heard people say that, and I'm just like, no, dude, no, you're just way too white.
That's funny. There's the thing is that I grew up in a bookstore and then later worked in publishing,
Oh yeah,
and I really shouldn't advise people to write books because anyone can write a book, but actually getting someone to read it is another thing altogether, and it can be really heartbreaking, and also incredibly illogical. We had an instance where I can't remember her name now, but she was rather famous,
yeah,
and she had written a book that had some great acclaim, and then she wrote something that was very personal. It was sort of like a biography, but it
yeah.
had so much personal information with it that she felt she couldn't um, use her own name because it would
Okay,
lead people to realize what her family background was like. So when the orders for this book were not coming in, no one wanted to order it. It wasn't going to make it into stores. She started asking if she could do author events.
if she could do what?
Author events.
Oh, okay,
And of
like
course,
book signings and stuff like that, promotion.
yeah, but the problem is because it was anonymous, she had used a pen name for this book. So are you going to do an author event uh, and show up and say your name is Bob when you're really Richard Madsen? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. And this sort of stuff would happen to us all the time. And it was amazing that we weren't, all alcoholics. It would be Noah, or what, you know. I actually worked on a sort of proposal for a Canadian publishing company and its misadventures. And the idea was we might produce a few spec scripts and see if anyone would go for it. But I'm not so sure that it would.
Well, if I ever need advice before I start writing something, I'll ask of you.
Well, if you like, I don't have. If you'll forgive the expression, I'm not God's gift to publish. A little more familiar with publishing shenanigans
Right.
than most people. For example, I once did a huge favor. Well, not a huge favor, but a favor for an editor at Simon and Schuster,
Okay.
and so quite quickly, with great alacrity, it was done. And I sent her, along with the package I was sending her, I sent her a manuscript
Mm-hmm.
that I was hoping she would read. And the odds are against it getting accepted, but she could try. She could read it. And I got a letter back that was a rejection letter, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just a rejection letter. It was a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a rejection letter, which she hadn't even bothered to sign. Also, didn't say thank you for the package I had mailed to her that she had requested in the first place. And I thought,
Wow, tough audience.
yes, yes, and also what they really look for in an author is marketability. Is the author famous before they wrote a book? Um, do they come with a prepackaged audience? Um,
Right.
for example, if your YouTube channel had 200,000 subscribers, that would be a bonus in their eyes.
Oh, well, that's probably not going to happen without some intervention.
No, me neither. I don't know if BigZebra.com will really take off, but I hope to entertain myself and maybe a few others. And
I should have to put the link to that under this. I don't know why my brain thought that was just a funny name
oh
for
well, I'm
you
glad you
doing
thought it was
this. Yeah, I thought it was hilarious, BigZebra.com, but I didn't think there was an actual BigZebra.com.
well. There really is, and
I had no idea. I mean, maybe you told me and I forgot. And if that's so, I apologize.
no, no, don't apologize for that. It's not like there's going to be a short quiz after you're going to talk to me. Um,
Right.
but I'm glad people sometimes go to the site, and I just finished my project of writing a whole bunch of new articles, and so I hope to
And,
be posting them soon.
and that thumbnail for the article, that what was it? China is going to miniaturize the human beings or something like that.
It
That
was China,
picture,
yes. Oh, the
that
picture. I can tell you about that. That's called
it's a
tilt angle.
model of something, right?
Well, no. What it does is there's a concept called tilt angle photography, and I
Yeah.
don't know how it works because I'm not a photographer, but it
Right.
makes the people walking around look like little dolls, and the
Okay.
cars will look like toy cars, even though they're
Okay.
real, and the
Oh.
buildings though look normal, more or less.
Uh
And it's
huh.
just a photographic trick, and it's really amazing. But what you're seeing there are actual people and buildings, and
Oh, I thought it was a miniature, a model or something.
it looks like a model.
Yeah, that's
That's
what my
that's
brain thought.
funny.
Yeah.
Um, I actually saw photographs like this, and it's what gave me the idea for that particular article: China to miniaturize population by 2055. And what's something I would really love is sometimes for the Onion, uh, they put out an article that's absolutely ridiculous, and then
Mm-hmm.
someone thinks it's real, and then starts talking about it on the news or on a website, and that's happened to them many times, and it's just so hilarious and embarrassing, of course, but
Well,
it's
embarrassing, yeah, but for who? You know,
yes, not for the Onion, no,
not for the Onion. That's fine. I mean, they meant it as a joke. They knew it was a joke.
yes, and it's not their fault that someone thinks a newspaper called the Onion would be entirely serious. But
Probably
anyway,
not.
if it's okay, I'm starting to fade, so I'd like to get out and maybe just watch the chat.
Well,
And
brother, you did like an hour, and unless somebody else comes in immediately, I'm just gonna call it a show.
oh,
The gentleman Tobin I invited to come on, um, he had emailed me earlier today and said, "Hey, when's the next time we did a show?" So I made a stream and I linked him, and then he didn't respond to the email. He might not even be home right now to receive the email. I'm not certain.
maybe he's fine.
Um,
I saw I rather liked him as a guest, but I
yeah,
thought,
I
hey,
did
this
too.
guy high.
I don't know. I'm not good at judging that sort of thing, actually. I don't have
Yeah,
a lot of experience with recreational or self medicating or anything like that. I was always
well,
too
it's never
scared to
too
try.
late.
No, it really the idea really troubles me deeply. Like I don't think I could do that stuff.
Fair enough. I once had a really weird experience in
Mm,
Cambodia with a marijuana pizza. Um,
really?
yes, you see, it can grow there as a weed. So
Uh
even though it's illegal to roll it and smoke it, the law is sort of winked at, and they will sprinkle marijuana on a pizza for you, and they call it
huh.
a happy pizza, and you
Uh
just
huh.
sort of pay for it under the table. So I was staying there with a friend who had rented this big place, and they ordered. We would have pizza once a week, and they ordered one for me, and it did nothing, and I can't
Okay.
smoke marijuana because I just start coughing and vomiting.
Oh, that's not
So
fun.
they instead presented me with a marijuana pizza which did nothing. And then a week later, they give me one with double the marijuana, which does nothing. A
Yeah.
week after that, there's more marijuana, which does nothing. And then on the fourth day of the miracle of the pizza, they brought me a pizza that looked like it was just covered in marijuana, extremely thickly. And so I started eating it, and I became hungrier as I was eating this enormous pizza. And I was thinking that, well, I'm done, and it didn't do anything again. And I tried to get out of my chair, and I could, just nothing was working. I could move my arms, I could put them on the armrests, but I couldn't physically get up out of the chair. So I stayed there for some time.
So the fourth marijuana pizza hit you hard and you couldn't get up.
Yes, it sort of sounds like a joke, but jokes usually run on the rule of three. But this was the rule of four. And it was a long time before I got out of that chair, and I went to bed right away. And my brain was just racing, and I couldn't have a coherent thought. So in my head, I couldn't even finish a sentence. And it was
Right.
actually a bit frightening. But
I,
anyways,
I
we ended the show on a pizza story. I hope that's okay.
why not?
Yeah,
Sure, why
sure.
not? Anyway, now that I'm aware that bigzebra.com is an actual place where creative writing is going on and being expressed for various reasons, I'm going to recommend it to people, and I'm definitely going to include that link, which I guess it's right there on your tag as well. I'm gonna create a link and put it in the description, and I'm gonna change the thumbnail because it was your show, man. And we'll try Tobin again some other day. How's that?
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here. Always good to talk to you.
You as well. You as well. Thanks for coming and pulling my butt out of the fire. I
Oh,
appreciate it, Big Zebra, and also everyone who showed up in the side chat, to include, but not necessarily limited to, Wildheart666 and Titan Uranus and Paul Camish and Brainbug and Math Pig and Mama Atheist, also known as Pale Blue Mama, and a few others that are not popping into my mind right now. Thank you all so much for dropping in this little tiny neck of the woods. I appreciate it. And special thanks, of course, to Big Zebra. I appreciate you, man.
hey,
So,
same here.
oh,
I mean,
thanks.
I appreciate you. I don't mean I appreciate myself. That would be weird.
I hope you do appreciate yourself, actually.
Okay.
So until next time, guys, I want you all to know that I truly do look forward to the day that we're all great friends. Peace and respect to you all, and good night.